Wayne, you'll understand soon. This divorce is what I deserve, and what you owe me, Angelina whispered the morning she became a doctor, her voice strangely calm, her smile sharper than any scalpel she'd ever hold. Then she walked out of our apartment like a woman stepping into a future she didn't plan to share with me. What she didn't know was that the man she thought she could discard had already uncovered the betrayal she buried beneath all her white coat perfection. And the quiet revenge that unfolded afterward, it flipped her entire world upside down. Viewers, have you ever watched someone celebrate success by stabbing the person who held them up? What would you have done? Let me know in the comments. Please subscribe, like, and watch till the ending to share this interesting story to your family and friends. My name is Wayne John, and before everything fell apart, I lived a simple, deliberate life in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm 38 now, but for most of my adulthood, stability was the one thing I tried to build with my own hands. I guess that comes from losing my father before I even understood what abandonment meant. One morning when I was 7, he simply didn't come home. No accident. No explanation. No goodbye. That silence shaped the entire architecture of who I became: careful, patient, dependable to a fault. When people left, I stayed. When people faltered, I held the weight. I thought loyalty could hold anything together. Maybe that's why Angelina captivated me the moment we met. She walked into the clinic where I worked as a medical lab technologist with the kind of presence that made the air feel sharper, like everything in the room suddenly shifted to make space for her. She was in her second year of med school then, overworked, sleep-deprived, and somehow beautiful in ways that didn't make sense. I remember the shake in her hands when she unwrapped her stethoscope. She told me she felt like she didn't belong among people who grew up with money and generational safety. I told her she belonged anywhere she dreamed of. I meant it. And maybe that was the beginning of my downfall, believing so deeply in her that I didn't see the parts of her that were already cracking. The ambition. The fear. The hunger for a life she thought I couldn't give her. Looking back now, there were signs, subtle ones glinting like broken glass in sunlight, but I didn't know how much damage they foreshadowed. Because the day she became a doctor was the same day she ended our marriage and celebrated her triumph without me. Angelina's graduation dinner felt wrong from the moment we stepped into the restaurant. It was one of those upscale Atlanta spots with floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind where everything smells expensive, including the air. Her classmates filled the room, all in tailored suits and elegant dresses, laughing as if life had finally opened its doors to them. I stood beside her, smiling, clapping, trying to blend in, but I could feel something shifting under my feet. It was in the way her fingers slipped out of my hand the moment someone called her name. It was in the sideways glances her friends gave me, polite but dismissive, like I was a placeholder in a story they already knew the ending to. One of the new doctors, a tall guy with slicked back hair and perfect teeth, grinned at me and said, "You're the lab guy, right? Not husband. Not partner. Just lab guy." I laughed it off, but inside something tightened. Angelina didn't correct him. She was glowing, radiant, standing straighter than I'd ever seen her. And yet her eyes never once searched for mine. I told myself it was excitement, celebration, stress, anything but what it really was. She raised her glass suddenly, her voice ringing out above the chatter. "Tonight marks the beginning of my new life," she said. Everyone cheered. But her eyes, steady, cold, almost triumphant, locked onto mine as she reached into her purse and placed a crisp envelope in my hand. I knew what it was before I opened it, but nothing prepared me for the humiliation that followed. Please don't forget to subscribe. The sound in the restaurant faded the moment I touched the envelope. It was like someone lowered the volume on life itself. I could see people still talking, still laughing, still raising glasses, but all I heard was the slow, heavy thump of my own heartbeat. My hands trembled as I slid a finger under the seal, even though some part of me already knew. Angelina watched me with an expression I couldn't read, somewhere between relief and superiority, like she had finally crossed a finish line I didn't know we were racing toward. The divorce papers were crisp, freshly printed, not a wrinkle on them. She had planned this, practiced it, prepared to detonate our life in front of an audience. When I looked up, her friends had gone silent. A few exchanged glances, others smirked discreetly, and one actually lifted their phone as if waiting for drama. Angelina leaned in, her perfume sweet but suffocating. "Don't make this a scene, Wayne," she whispered. "Please. I'm not that girl anymore. That girl. The one I supported through panic attacks, through sleepless nights, through fears of failure. The one who used to cling to me like I was the only solid thing in her world." I felt something inside me crack. Not anger, not yet, but a hollow shock that made it hard to breathe. As she turned away, something slipped from her purse and landed on the floor with a soft tap. A hotel key card. She didn't notice. But I did. And suddenly, the humiliation didn't hurt as much as the truth it hinted at. I left the restaurant before anyone could see the tears threatening to break loose. I didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't chase her with questions she had already answered in her actions. I just walked out into the cool Atlanta night and sat in my car, staring at the hotel key card like it was a foreign object. Maybe it belonged to someone else. Maybe it had fallen into her purse accidentally. Maybe, God, I clung to every excuse I could invent. But deep down, beneath the shock and humiliation, a quiet, steady voice whispered the truth. People who plan divorces on graduation night don't accidentally carry hotel keys. I drove to the hotel anyway. The neon lights glowed against the windshield, flickering like warning signs I should have seen months earlier. I parked across the street and watched the entrance, telling myself I was foolish, paranoid, overreacting. Every minute felt like an hour. Then just when I was about to start the car and go home, the sliding doors opened. Angelina stepped out, laughing softly, her hair bouncing around her shoulders. She looked alive in a way she hadn't with me for months. And she wasn't alone. Walking beside her, his hand brushing dangerously close to hers, was Dr. Bradley Pierce, the same man who had barely acknowledged me at dinner. They looked comfortable, familiar, like this wasn't their first night together. I felt something cold wash over me, a numbness settling where my heart used to be. Their smiles weren't innocent. Their closeness wasn't accidental. And it hit me sharp and undeniable. The divorce wasn't the beginning of her new life. It was the final step of a plan she'd already been living. Please don't forget to subscribe. I barely slept that night. The image of Angelina and Bradley leaving the hotel replayed in my mind like a loop I couldn't escape. By morning, exhaustion pushed me past heartbreak into something colder, clarity. I walked around our apartment like a stranger, noticing things I'd ignored. The way her belongings were already condensed, the packed boxes in the corner labeled clinic, the empty space where her framed photos used to be. She had been peeling herself out of our life piece by piece, quietly, methodically, long before graduation night. That hurt more than the hotel. I sat at her desk, hands shaking, and opened her laptop. Same password we'd made during her first year of med school, a combination of our initials and the date we moved in together. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe emails between her and Bradley. Maybe messages with friends mocking me. But what I found was worse. There were folders, neatly organized, time-stamped over months. Drafts of divorce filings. Financial assessments. Conversations with a lawyer discussing how she could secure half my assets. My savings, my inheritance from my mother, even the small rental property I'd bought years ago. Then I found the emails with Bradley. Not romantic, not in the beginning. Calculated. Strategic. They discussed timing, public perception, how to make it clean. And then later the intimacy, jokes about my predictability, messages about her future with him, screenshots of apartments they were considering. My chest tightened, not with pain but with realization. She hadn't fallen out of love. She had outgrown the version of me she no longer found useful. And she believed I wouldn't fight back. She was wrong. I didn't confront her. I didn't call her. I didn't even let myself replay her laughter outside that hotel. Instead, I closed the laptop gently, like I was burying something that had already died, and walked out of the apartment with a calmness that felt almost unnatural. If Angelina had spent months preparing her escape, then I would spend whatever time I needed preparing my response. Not screaming. Not begging. Not falling apart the way she expected. Something quieter. Sharper. The kind of silence that makes people nervous. I drove to a law office downtown, one recommended by a colleague who had survived a brutal separation himself. The receptionist recognized the look on my face. Men who arrive calm, too calm, always carry the heaviest stories. When the attorney came out, a stern man named Walsh with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing, he listened without interrupting once. But when I handed him the printed emails, the financial plans, the timeline of her communications with Bradley, he leaned back in his chair with a long, low whistle. "She's been building a case," he said. "Luckily for you, she's been sloppy." I told him something I'd never told anyone. Before becoming a medical lab technologist, I worked with a research security team tracking data breaches and internal fraud. I knew how to catalog evidence, how to maintain digital trails, how to preserve information so it couldn't be dismissed. A skill I thought I'd left behind was suddenly the sharpest tool I had. Walsh asked me what outcome I wanted. Revenge? Retaliation? I shook my head. "Just the truth," I said. And whatever happens when the truth finally lands. He nodded slowly, almost approvingly. Then we'll give her exactly that. Please don't forget to subscribe. I replayed the clerk's expression in my head for hours, her hesitating eyes, the pity hovering in her voice, the way she looked at me like she wished she could warn me of something bigger. When morning came, I walked into my living room feeling like a man stepping into a war zone he didn't fully understand. The sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors, but it didn't warm anything. Not the room. Not me. Not the dread crawling beneath my ribs. Angelina was on the couch, legs crossed, scrolling through her phone like the world didn't exist beyond that screen. She glanced up when she heard my footsteps, her expression a careful mix of annoyance and indifference. "You're up early," she said. "Working on that lottery stuff again?" My breath caught. Not because she asked, but because she asked so casually, as if the topic had already come up in her world. I told no one. Not a soul. "What do you mean, again?" I asked. She shrugged, eyes drifting back to her phone. "I overheard you on the phone last night. Something about tickets and verification. I hadn't made a single call. Hadn't said a single word about the winnings." A cold realization crept into me. She wasn't guessing. She knew something. Too much. Maybe everything. "Who told you?" I asked. She paused mid-scroll. Just a heartbeat. But enough. Enough to confirm the truth. Angelina finally looked at me, and gave the smallest, most calculated smile I'd ever seen on her. "People talk, Wayne." Her answer rattled in my skull long after the words left her lips. People talk. But nobody knew, nobody except the cashier and me. I stood there, watching Angelina pretend to be uninterested, yet every inch of her body hummed with attention she was trying to hide. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't confused. She was waiting. That was the part that sent a slow chill spreading over my skin. After a moment, she set her phone aside with exaggerated calm, stretching like she had all the time in the world. "You're staring, Wayne. Something wrong?" she asked, innocent as a painted angel. I forced a breath, forced my voice steady. "Where did you hear anything about the lottery?" If she sensed the shift in me, she didn't show it. She simply rose from the couch, smoothing her robe like she was preparing for a performance. "Does it matter?" she asked. "If it's true, then we should be talking about plans. Big ones." She walked toward me, slow and deliberate. Her perfume drifted around me, sweet, overly warm, a scent she knew I used to love. Now it clung to the air like a warning. "You've been distant lately," she whispered. "I thought maybe things were changing. But if you're hiding money, real money, from me, that's worse than any mistake I've made." I frowned. "Mistake?" She stiffened barely. Her eyes flicked away before she could catch herself. "I meant, in general." But I heard the slip. And I understood, she wasn't talking about the future. She was talking about the past. The one I hadn't uncovered yet. "Please don't forget to subscribe." Her slip dug into my thoughts like a splinter I couldn't ignore. Mistake. She hadn't meant to say it, her eyes told me that much. Still, I pretended to let it pass. I needed to hear more. Needed her to keep talking without realizing she already said too much. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I sat alone at the edge of the bed, the glow of her phone lighting my hands. I had never snooped through her things before. But something in me, something cold and newly awakened, pushed my thumb across the screen. She had no password change. Almost like she trusted me not to look. Or like she was certain I wouldn't dare. Her messages were clean, almost unnaturally so. No late-night texts. No emotional paragraphs. No drama. Too perfect. And perfection is a lie. When I opened her email, I finally found the crack. A thread titled "Residency Celebration Planning," dated 2 months earlier. I expected group chats. Photos of restaurants. Maybe rental spaces. But instead, email after email from a man named Caleb, a name that meant nothing to me at first, until I read the first line he ever sent her. "I'm so proud of you, Angie. I still think about the nights we spent studying together, and everything after." My breath stalled. My vision blurred. This wasn't a colleague. This wasn't a friend. This was someone she had history with. Someone she'd never mentioned. And the dates? God. Their exchanges started while she and I were still together, long before the divorce she filed the day she became a doctor. And the night she celebrated, she hadn't celebrated alone. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table until dawn smeared pale gold across the countertops, replaying every memory with her, every late shift, every unexplained mood, every time she said she was too tired to talk. By sunrise, the anger had cooled into something sharper, something focused. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed truth, not another lie wrapped in tears and apologies. Over the next week, I quietly pieced together everything she tried to bury: old social posts, archived photos, a forgotten LinkedIn connection. Caleb wasn't some harmless study partner. He was her ex. The one she dated before me. The one who cheated on her. The one she told me she couldn't stand to even think about. But there they were, two smiling faces at a rooftop bar the night she became a doctor. The same night she filed for divorce. 3 years later, when she reappeared at my door with practiced humility, she never imagined I had already uncovered the truth. She thought I was still the man who assumed the best of her. But I wasn't. So when she asked for a second chance, when she cried about regrets, loneliness, and heartbreak, I simply listened. Calmly. Quietly. Letting her believe I was contemplating forgiveness. Then I told her the inheritance money my uncle left me, the money she was hoping to latch onto, was already moved into an irrevocable trust she could never touch. The look in her eyes collapsed first, then the rest of her followed. She realized her past had finally caught up to her. And for the first time I felt nothing but freedom. If you want, I can now write a sequel or aftermath story. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share.